you know, what's really interesting, joking, metaphysical, the beginning of time, the beginning of support. I don't know many organizations where support has the luxury of saying, what are we going to build? How are we going to build it? Let's be thoughtful about, creating an organizational structure and invest in the time and the resources and the people to build what we want. Because usually startup early stage, it's, my God, we put a product out there. Now we need to support a customer. All hands on deck. Let's start doing it.
Yeah. Just talk to the customers. Go.
Yeah, it's a little over dramatic, but perhaps some of the most refined organizations are the ones where somebody has come in and said, I know how to get it done. I know what we need to do, but it's situational. I don't know how many, obviously you've worked with lots of different people through support driven and conferences and just networking, but every single situation is different. And, so I'm not saying that there isn't an answer to, well, what do you do? But it's very much geared towards, well, what is your current circumstance? Where are you today? And what is it that the business needs from you?
Yeah.
And, for companies that have a raging fire and they simply need to get, some very basic block and tackling done, answer customer questions, you don't have that luxury. So if we take a step back and say, what's the absolute perfect, believe it or not, the absolute perfect support model is to have 0 support cases.
I always say the best customer service is one that you don't have to talk to.
Yeah. So there's a big company. I probably shouldn't use their name, but the guy who runs it, he and I started. We picked up the telephone together, answering tech support calls a long time ago. But now he's running, a support organization that must have thousands and thousands of people now, internationally. And he said that, he told the CEO of this company that his objective was to put his organization out of business. Okay. And, it met with like, what are you talking about? But it makes sense, of course, that we get to a point where we don't have to provide support. It doesn't mean that we don't talk to our customers, and it doesn't mean that we don't help and guide them to, get productivity and get value from the products they buy.
Yeah.
It just means that we aren't saying, oh my God, why am I getting an echo? Why can't I connect with Neil? We're having a meaningful discussion. That's what we should be doing here. So,
we have this analogy that I've used a lot of times within my teams and kind of the journey that I've been on as well, is that so often it feels like you're, treading water, but also being asked to build the boat at the same time, that you're really trying to continue to build it and build it and float. And when you're first starting out, like when I started my current organization, AIHR, we just had a Gmail inbox. That was it. No ticketing system, no CRM, no nothing. We just, here's the inbox, here you go. Let's start helping customers and starting to define when is the right stages to start measuring certain metrics has always been something that I've been on the edge of trying to discover at the same time. And what I'm really trying to figure out is how can we help other teams be able to certain things. And I was looking at, for example, your service contribution index, which I found very, very insightful along this kind of journey as well, as starting from basic, what do you measure at a basic maturity? How do you go from there? And how do you grow that? Have you seen kind of the journey of those timelines in a standardized way, or is it just really very, very, very situational?
Unfortunately, it's situational, and one is the sort of the chaos that surrounds support, and then it's the leadership and the vision that matters the most. somebody who is willing to, basically make the case to the to the executive leadership team. This is what we contribute. That's why I think the support contribution index concept is beginning to change the nomenclature. You commented on something yesterday or the day before on support driven about somebody who's about to go in front of the rest of the organization to say, here's what we do. We've so institutionalized how fast, how many, cases do we close, and that becomes a surrogate for good. So situationally, it has to come down to what is it that we can contribute back to the business. And, I wish that support had been recognized, a decade ago for being what it truly was. It was the original customer success organization.
Yeah.
But it never had, go out and onboard, drive adoption, get the renewal. It was never formally accepted. It was just not part of the mission. So we built another silo. The reason I'm saying that is that we've always recognized that, post sales, there are engagements and activities that occur, and the value of those have unfortunately not been fully recognized. So there are some companies that I think have a brilliant strategy because their support teams are adjacent to or belong to the engineering teams. And they are the eyes and ears of the teams that create the products. And their mission is to bring all that useful information back to the teams to say, here's how the products get better. Here's what our roadmap should look like. And that by virtue is making the products more competitive, more resilient, more attractive. That drives goodness. And then you have other teams that are, sort of success focused. Well, we're going to help customers use the products more effectively. So the metrics are skewed based on, well, what do you need these teams to do?
Yeah. And for example, you talk about it really comes down to leadership and the culture that's built around it, and really the communication within the organization that happens. Is there any advice that you would have for teams who are starting out to build that culture to become that strategic partner, or something that they should avoid doing so that they're not just recognized as this cost center, volume, speed type operational department?
Yeah, I think it's early on, communicating in terms of what value and contributions being provided back to the company versus here's how much work we're doing. It's very easy to slip into this, well, here's what we can measure, so let's measure it. Yeah. We're overworked at the moment. We've taken 5,000 cases and there's only 10 of us. Well, that may be an important indicator, but it really doesn't convey so what.
Yeah.
So I think that we have to get into the mindset of we're doing this for a reason, and convince others that reason is the right reason.
Yeah, I think that speaks really to also your approach to the way that you also give advice and suggestions into support-driven team like members. For example, for me, one of the early conversations that we were having was I implemented a new triage system and our way that we approached queue management and the way that we just tackled the queue in general. And I was super excited because I was like, yes, we got like our first response time down. We started helping 30% of our customers in 30 minutes instead of just 17%. And I was super excited about that. And you were like, well, you really shouldn't be looking at it as just the overall people that you're helping, but what are the key people that you're helping there? And what are those high value people that you're helping in terms of like bringing that into the next further step of just, hey, this is what we're doing, but why and who is the most important person you're doing it for?
Yeah. I just had an exercise where we had to do a real deep dive into time to resolution. And what a can of worms it is, because it's such a foundational metric. Yet For the same reason that, anything that's related to volume and velocity is good to know, but does it mean that you're getting the outcomes you need?
Yeah.
So this whole notion of, the reason that you reminded me of this is that it occurred to me that queue management and driving to time to resolution is, it seems intuitive that we should do that, but you can't take a first in, first out approach. Not every case has the same meaning and the same value. So a case might age longer. Well, maybe that's okay because you're spending your time and effort on a case that actually has a more profound implication, either because it's a marquee customer or that if you fix that issue, you fix it for 1,000 customers. So our business is complex, and again, we seldom have the luxury of taking a step back to say, well, what should I do next? No, it's coming at you through a fire hose, and it's often we'll work on everything all at once, and we'll try and do everything we can.
Yeah.
Because support people, for as long as I've been in support, and it's been a while, always want to do the right thing. Serve, satisfy, get the job done. It's amazing. But it's also really difficult when demand exceeds supply. So
yeah. That's why I think it's important to realize that those operational metrics are there and look at what are we doing, how much is happening. This is really important for maintaining just the fire hose, like controlling that itself. How much water is coming out at a time? What are we actually looking at? What's the situation per se?
yeah.
But then only using it for that and not saying, hey, this is the value that we're bringing. That's a completely different viewpoint where that culture and that vision and that mission of really why you're doing it is so much more important than just that velocity and speed that you're talking about.
Yeah. But, there's another tendency in support, which is we need to do something. So let's find technology. Let's throw something at it.
Yeah.
Maybe, what we know from our research and our studies is that the most effective thing that any company can do, any support team can do, is to take and learn from what the interactions with customers are, feed that back to the product teams, and actually work on focusing or building better products. That has more profound benefit to the support team than building knowledge bases and self-help. Not that those things aren't important, but if we want to focus on building long-term sustainable support strategies, we need to think about how many people in a support organization today are allocated to creating content and providing self-help resources. That number's ticking up.
Yep.
So maybe it's 10% in a generous organization, maybe more. But
I mean, especially now with the integration of AI, right? You need somebody to be able to manage that technology and to be able to utilize it as well.
Yeah, and that's a whole another heavy lift, because not many organizations have budget or resources or skill sets where, hey, go figure out this AI thing. What does that even mean? So
what do you want me to do with
it? That's right. There are tremendous tool sets that are coming to market. So there will be tool sets for support to be able to do some really cool things with technologies that are innovative and mind-blowing. But again, is that really, I guess what I was going to say is that, so let's say that, a company's willing to invest 10% of its staff or 20% of its staff on building capability to actually try and deflect inbound demand. That's great. But the other 80% are still, on the front lines putting out the fires.
Yep.
So when do we flip the model and say, we should put more investment into doing things that allow us to be more proactive and preventative? It's really hard to do. Um,
And especially if you consider that kind of mindset of, if I invest an extra 5-10 minutes here, just as an example, to solve something that's going to save me hours and hours later, is it worth putting off that super high volume of people coming in to be able to take that and say, hey, it's going to solve this problem much, much further down the road?
well, that, bringing it back to metrics, it's counterintuitive, but yet support has probably more digital intelligence than any other organization in a company. Yet our ability to mine it meaningfully and actually know what that, what all that inbound data is telling us. Uh, the tools, yeah, I mean, there've been some tools out there, but I think I saw somebody discussing using VLOOKUP to actually, do data analytics on their case records. And I'm thinking to myself, my God, I remember doing that. You suck in all this data into Excel, and then you use formulas to try and extract. Well, we've got better tools now. It's just that
Yeah.
using them for using them and to actually, deliver something meaningful back to the company and say, look at this. This is where the cost is. Um, let's focus on this. Let's have an agreement that this is part of the product roadmap, not 7 new features that customers are only going to use 2.
Yeah. Feature requests always just get put on the backlog unless you're really using a data-driven approach to say, hey, this is really why it's important that we make this change.
Well, see, that's the thing. I mean, we could go into an entirely different tangent easily, but pushing features out versus usability enhancements, which one's more important? One demo's better and is easier to maybe close a sale or respond to a big account, but at the end of the day, if you make a product more usable because you understand what's causing customers from being able to fully wrap their brain around it,
Yeah.
that's a good investment. But it's hard to make that investment, make that case without the data.
Yeah, you talk a lot about making the relationship with product and really, really driving those insights from customers back into the product organization to make these changes. And in my specific scenario, we have now a tech team who's building our entire new platform. They're building it out, and we're really creating something brand new. And then the support team is separate from that. And we use kind of a swarm approach where the tech team is our tier 2 support and our technical support for us. And we're like tier 1.5 if you look at the ITIL tiers. But a lot of times I get asked like, hey, when are we going to have like a dedicated technical support? And I say, well, we don't necessarily need it because we have a really good relationship with our engineers and our tech team, and to be able to have that relationship. What would you say is something that a support organization can really start to do to build that relationship from the ground up and start to have a good relationship there?
I can imagine the first encounter is you go up to the big door of the engineering team, and you knock on the door and say, I come bearing gifts. Here's data about how our customers are using our products. I mean, that usually is a pretty tremendous, eye opener.
Yeah.
And as long as it's not threatening. Right now, for a lot of support dev relationships, it's an escalation that comes from the ticketing system into Jira or whatever platform, and it's just it's just more queue management. But now it's and so it's like that doesn't build a relationship. It's like, whoa, you're creating work for me.
Yeah.
When in fact, it's kind of the other way around. But I think the universal language is data, right, and what it means.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, one of our core values is being data driven, so I definitely understand that and really, really speak that. I mean, I could sit and talk for hours with you. It seems like we really have some insights to be had. But tell me a little bit more about ServiceXRG and what you guys are doing in terms of trying to make this shift. It seems like that's really, really the vision there.
Yeah, well, I mean, our entire reason for being is to study these things, to know, or attempt to know what's happening in support and success communities. Looking for those best practices, looking for those thought leaders, and then trying to document them and put them out there and share them with people. So we're research first. It's always been about the data, even when data used to be really hard to get versus being able to ask ChatGPT how to write my note. We don't do that. Everything here curated only by humans. I started this company just about 20 years ago. Before that, I worked in other organizations and teams, and it always frustrated me because there was never a singular resource or meaningful data that kind of aligned to the kinds of decisions that I wanted to make or things that I wanted to talk about. So that's kind of our mission in life, is to surface those perhaps inspirational ideas. Hey, we could apply this here and do it based on data. So.
Nice. I think that's a beautiful vision and a really smart mission in terms of, I think support is really going through this transition of we really do need to start becoming more strategic within the organization and changing that mindset around the value that we bring. And I think that that you're really driving that forward.
Hey, I agree, and I think there's a lot of people out there that absolutely agree. And to your point, I think it's a matter of people trying to figure out, well, how do I do it? How do I take that first step? And I guess the answer is probably what? Data, Yeah. Demonstrate, quantify, communicate, what it is that the support team does and how it contributes to the business. And that can start a really meaningful dialogue.
Yeah, I think really getting that dialogue started with the organization and really kicking it off and starting that conversation is the most important part. Once you get it started, just continue to have it, continue to raise it.
Yeah, and there are some situations where that conversation just is a non-starter, and in other cases it's, this is just the catalyst. We need to change our mindset and our focus and our value to our customers. So
yeah, definitely. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day and coming to meet with me and have this conversation and talk about it. And is there any way that, for example, other people can gather these resources and kind of contact you?
Sure. Come check out our resource library. Our articles, our reports, most everything is available, no charge. It's out there in the public domain. There was a time when people used to sell data.
Yeah.
That's not what we do. We make it available. And if people want help, we're here to help people. But hopefully everything you could need is out there. And if not, we'd love to hear from, we like to hear from people and say, wow, really it'd be great if you had, could tell me about, chances are we have the data. We just haven't gotten around to write it up and put it out there. So
yeah, you mentioned research first, right? So
yeah, and it's every conversation and every interaction is a new opportunity to learn. And sometimes we have to roll up our sleeves and go out and conduct big studies of practitioners, and sometimes we go and ask customers what they think about things, and but it's discussing and learning, and that drives a lot of what we try and put together in terms of somebody wanted to know about this, let's write it up, we'll put it out there, and and back it up with what we are able to substantiate with the data we have. So
yep.
But anyways, everything's up on our site, ServiceXRG.com.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
So I'm curious about you. I don't want to keep you.
Oh no, you're good. You're good.
Okay. Well, I mean, like I said, I don't think you sleep because It's like you're doing your regular job,
Yeah.
you're doing all this other stuff. It's um, I, I think it's great. You know, uh, this support used to be so much better served. In the old days, there were more organizations focused on support professionals, and there are communities that were vibrant, and they don't really exist. There used to be a magazine called Support Management.
Ah.
Yeah, it was all about tech support. It was a printed, glossy, very nice looking magazine.
Yeah.
There was another printed publication called Service News, and then it went digital. I mean, but the resources, here we are. We've got all this connectivity, but there's just not that many, frankly, vibrant communities left.
Yeah, I think that's one of the reasons that really pushed me to do what I'm doing right now, on top of like the regular role and being so active in support driven and in the community, is like the support community has done so much for me in terms of I learn by collaborating, by talking to people. Like I learn like having conversations like this. And so for me, being able to not only have those conversations for people who may not otherwise reach out for them or look for them or know that they're there, but also to provide some resources to give that support back to the industry and back to the community, is really what's kind of the driving the passion project for me.
Unless you know of another place out there, I was thrilled to come, to learn about support driven, because I don't know of other more vibrant discussions that aren't full of spam. Yeah, so, but it's good, and maybe at the end of the day, you'll build out your site to be that great support blueprint in the sky.
Hopefully, long-term goals, long-term goals. Right now, it's just we're just getting it out there. So
Yeah.
thank you so much, Tom. I really appreciate it, taking the time.
Yeah. No, it's great to chat with you, Neil, and we'll see you on Slack, and great. Okay. Well, good, Neil. Pleasure to meet you live and in person, and look forward to the next conversation.
You as well. Thank you so much, Tom. You have a wonderful day.
You as well. Bye-bye.
Bye.